Lovely. So we are live. Welcome everyone for Scoliosis community. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christine Yogaberry and I'm a yoga teacher and I specialize in yoga for scoliosis. And welcome to Back Chat as well. So this is my weekly live stream. It's happening every Wednesday. For me, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And today, obviously, I already said I am a yoga teacher, and you probably have guessed this from the name. But today, we're actually going to talk about Pilates. So I have got the lovely Karena Thek here, and Karena is joining us from the UK, from the US. Sorry, I just got distracted to see that that it's still all happening on YouTube. I think we're all right, but we'll see how it goes. It's one of these things with the live streaming experience. We're relying heavily on the internet, of course, and that it's with us. So we'll see. Okay, we'll just keep going and we'll see what happens. Good. So Karena, yes, Karena is a Pilates teacher. And Karena, you've written some books as well. I saw. I did a little bit of my own research, and yeah, there were a few books out there. And you have been training health professionals as well and other Pilates teachers in how to possibly adapt their practice or how to deal with patients that have scoliosis. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. So I wrote the books, and then ever since I've been asked to teach the professionals, and I certainly continue to teach my clients. That's where I learn. But most of my, in my education courses, I have mostly Pilates instructors and physiotherapists. So those two groups. And then I also have just people who are interested in learning more about scoliosis, and of course yoga instructors and massage therapists. And my course now, I have a medical doctor, which usually get maybe one a course. So yeah, it's a really nice varied group, lots of different information.
Yes, sounds like it. Amazing. Good. So if I really wanted to do this on YouTube, because it's a great opportunity to join us live here. So if you are joining us live, and I can see if you're already joining us here, please feel free to ask any questions. Let us know where you're from. So I've got someone from, oh, it's Trudy from Australia. Now I know that she has set her alarm for 1 o'clock in the morning. So thank you so much for joining us, Trudy. She was
That's,
actually the one who suggested for me to get in touch with you
that's
um,
fantastic.
to have a chat. So yes, really, really nice that that worked out, obviously.
Yes, really nice.
Good. Karena, so you've got scoliosis yourself, is that right?
I do. I wasn't diagnosed until I was in my 30s, though. And I remember going to the orthopedic surgeon when I was a child, and I lived in the middle of nowhere. And so we would always get these very young doctors that were in training, and I just kind of remember them looking at me like this. And I remember looking back at them and thinking, you're barely older than I am. And so it went undiagnosed, and I went into a professional dance career. And now, once I was diagnosed with scoliosis, it was like, oh, this is fantastic. Now I really understand why some of the things I was trying to do were just such a struggle. And it was nice having that understanding. But it was also nice not being diagnosed at a young age, because I think my parents would have changed some of their decisions about what I could do and couldn't do. So it was maybe turned out.
Yes. And so why did you go to kind of get checked out in the first place when you were diagnosed?
Well, when I was in my 30s, I went to an orthopedic surgeon again in my 20s. I went when I was a child because I had back pain. And then I went again in my 20s when I was dancing, and I was like, okay, this has got to stop. And he said, well, come back when you need surgery. And I said, well, how do you know when you need surgery? And he said, well, you'll know. And sure enough, I knew. I could barely walk, and I lost use of this leg. And it was that surgeon who took a look at my x-rays and said, oh, you have scoliosis. And I looked right back at him and I said, doesn't everybody have scoliosis? He said, well, as a matter of fact, no. And he wrote in my chart, irritable pain levels must be high. And so at that time, I had been dancing what felt like my entire life since the age of 5. And I'd been teaching Pilates and I'd been teaching dance, and I had never seen a symmetrical body. And so I thought that meant scoliosis, and of course it doesn't. And so after the surgery, I got use of my leg back, which was super fabulous. But the pain in my back was not good. And it just kind of deteriorated. And over the next 18 months, I just struggled and struggled with it. And Pilates would get me to a certain level, but it just wasn't where I wanted to be. I did not want to wake up in pain. I didn't want to have to teach while I was lying on the floor next to my clients. And so, one thing led to another. I was introduced to the Schroet work, and then I combined that with the Pilates work, and I combined that with all what we're learning about fascia now, and I combined that with the breathing work of Chateau, Bradley, and Gilbert. And so just combine, trying to just get the best, like you were saying earlier, just get the best information from wherever you can gather it and just bring it in and see how, you can adapt it. And shortly after that, my back pain just kind of went away. It was like really shortly after that.
Right.
And I thought, this has to be a coincidence. There's just no way that it can just be gone like this from a few changes in how I'm exercising. And I thought, well, surgery was 18 months ago. It was time for the pain to go away. It was like the deadline, the expiration date, I hit it and the pain was gone. And so I invited people to come to my studio. I said, if you have scoliosis, come work with me. We'll try this, what I tried on myself, see if it works for you. And it was another 18 months, almost 2 years of just trying and seeing and writing things on paper and stuffing them in drawers and seeing if this would work. And it turned out that, yes, it does. A lot of people were reporting the same thing. The pain was going away. So I thought, okay, we need to move forward with this. Even if it's just me and my mother who read these notes in the future, I need to move forward. So we did.
Yeah, brilliant. So tell me a little bit more about your experience with the Schroet therapy. And yes, because I'm fascinated. I am German. I don't know if you can probably tell from my accent that I'm not British. But for me, it's always been something. I was familiar with it because in Germany, it's probably a little bit more mainstream than it is anywhere else in the world. But I'm always fascinated that it kind of spread
Yes.
all over the world.
Right. Well, I was definitely not familiar with it. And the reason I was introduced to it was because I had my own studio, but I was also a director of Pilates at a physical therapy clinic down the road. And there was one day when a mother walked in with her son and handed what we call the Schroet manual. It's the yellow book. And she handed it to one of the physiotherapists and said, can you teach this to my son? And I'm looking over her shoulder going, what is that? Mm-hmm. And started going through it. And I thought, okay, this is a lot different than what I've been doing. And so let me take a closer look at this. And so reading the book, gleaning as much information as I can from that book, and applying it in the Pilates environment. So if you've ever done the Schroet work, you know that it can be pretty arduous. It's difficult work. And so I was thinking, how can I use the equipment? How can I use, even a TheraBand or a yoga strap? How can I use those tools to assist this change? And then once I have this elongation pattern, this derotation pattern, this improved alignment, then how do I maintain it? And so again, using the breathing techniques out of the work of Dinah Bradley, using the fascia knowledge that we have from Chaytow and Schleip and Headley, and just kind of moving forward and saying, okay, we have this alignment. How do we assist it? There's got to be things that our body naturally does, that maybe we can use those natural, not tendencies, but natural, the body's natural way of working to assist those alignments. And so that's pretty much how the work developed and how I was introduced to the Schroet work. That woman who came to us at the physio clinic said, the closest person to us is 6 hours away. And at the time, she was one of very, very few in the U.S., not many here at all. So that's how we think it.
Yeah, and it's, you were mentioning the book. This is a big book, isn't it? We're talking about a book like this, and it's not an easy read.
It is not an easy read, but it has phenomenal information. If you want to dive deep and you can be patient with yourself and be patient with the information, then it's there. There's a tremendous amount of information in that book. And when I started taking notes and applying it to the work that I was doing, I had to basically take what was in that manual, apply it here to my own environment, and make sense of it. So it just became lists and lists and lists and papers stuffed in drawers and in bras and in back pockets and just everywhere. And and so when I put the book together, the first time it was like, okay, honestly, Christine, I didn't think anybody would be interested. I really didn't know my mother would read it. And so, but I had to organize it for myself because literally papers were just flying in different directions. And so that book is really just a result of my organizing my own thoughts, and not just, the emphasis of the Schroet work, but how do I bring this together with the other things that I'm learning, want to continue to learn. So it's an evolving process. Everything's constantly in motion, kind of like me. Constantly in motion.
Well, and there's constantly new research coming on, and the Schroth method has developed enormously as well over the last 20 years, and there's now the grandson of Katharina who's continuing the work, and then he's gone off in a slightly different direction to some of the other Schroth people. So it's interesting. And I was actually trying to get your book, but I can't get it in the UK for some reason. Did you know that?
I would contact Julie. She's one of our practitioners and she lives in Germany.
Oh, okay.
The shipping from the US to the UK is really absurdly expensive. You can get it on Kindle if you don't mind having it on computer. That's certainly an option. But I probably would just contact Julie. I don't know her website off the top of my head or her email, but I can get that to you.
Yes. Yeah, I think anything, I don't know, you probably have pictures in there as well, isn't it? It's always, I prefer to have it on a actual paper.
Yeah, I do too. For books like that, yes. I almost, because I take a lot of notes in my books. My books are covered with notes. Mm-hmm. If it's a novel, even then I kind of want it on paper because sometimes my vocabulary is not great, and so there's all these new words, and I'm like, okay, I need to write these down somewhere.
Yeah. Even though for that, the Kindle is actually really good because you can look up things as well. So.
I love that. Yeah.
Good. So I'm just looking at the chat here. So we've got a few people here. So we've got someone who's saying, I've got SCAF, scoliosis. Albert is saying, is scoliosis more common in men or in women?
That's a great question. It's actually pretty similar, believe it or not. We are always talking about women with scoliosis and our young girls that we're concerned about with scoliosis. but the ratio of men to women is fairly similar. But however, there's a change, there's a difference. So if we have a curve that's less than, I'm going to get my numbers mixed up now, but let's say the curve is less than 20 degrees, then the ratio of men to women is about women 1.3 to men 1, so 1.3 to 1. Now, if we raise that number on the curve up to about 35 degrees, then the ratio is about 5 to 1. And then if we raise that curve up another 15 degrees to about 50 degrees, now girls way beat the men. We're like 7 to 1 at that point. So women tend to progress more, but we do actually have scoliosis at about the same.
Yes, I think it was Dr. Weiss who said it's got something as well to do with upper body strength. So when boys are developing, they have more upper body strength, and girls are more flexible, and that's why during this kind of growth period, very often it progresses quicker in girls.
Right, it's a maturation. So girls are maturing at their bodies are physically developing very quickly when they're young. Anybody who's watched children grow, we know that the girls shoot up and then later the boys catch up. And so they think that with the girls that the autonomic nervous system, so that automatic, you could call it nervous system, and then there's the body's nervous system, so things that control our body. They think that maybe they're a bit out of sync at that very young age, and that when the girls start shooting up, that the autonomic nervous system isn't quite there to meet it. Whereas the boys grow a little later, and so they think that maybe it develops more equally.
Yes, yeah. And then there's the other end, obviously, as well. Not the end quite yet, but women going through menopause, I find like just from working with people and the kind of general chat in the community, that is another stage when things all of the sudden start to kind of deteriorate, to change, curves are progressing, and all of that. Yes, so it must be some hormonal changes, maybe.
Absolutely. I find the same thing. And so the 3 changes that we're really watching for are the onset of menses, pregnancy, and menopause. And all 3 of those can destabilize the scoliosis curve. And when it destabilizes the curve, then it can progress. The curve can get a little worse. That doesn't mean you're going to go, from this shape to like this shape overnight. But these are times when we have to, number one, be aware of it. So maybe this is a time to really ramp up the strengthening, but also to, be forgiving for yourself. So it's like, okay, so definitely when I went through menopause, my rotation got a little worse and I wasn't happy about it. And I'm working hard not to let that happen. However, at least in the back of my mind, I have this understanding that, okay, it's probably going to change a little bit and then we can maintain it again right where it is.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Good. So Shalina is here from Canada. Hello. Hi, Shalina. We've got Happy Cats from Knoxville. Now, that is not her name, and I always forget who that is, but let us know your name again. Kirti from India. I have mild scoliosis, but too much heaviness in my back, which is too irritating. So lots of discomfort here. Diana is saying, hi, ladies. Doctor had recommended Pilates. I opted to do the Schroth. How will Pilates help? I've been doing Dr. Fishman's 3 yoga poses. My curves are right thoracic, left lumbar, both mid-70s. So pretty severe curves there.
Yeah. So certainly we can't offer specific advice in a format like this to someone. However, I do like the comment, I think, out of India that said that my back is heavy. And yet, certainly there are so many days when it feels like the spine is heavy, like it's actually something that we're carrying with us as opposed to actually being us. So this spine is ours, is very much a part of us. And hopefully.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to think about if we're feeling heavy, then how do you lighten that load? And we actually will do exercises where, we'll take the hands on the ribs, and for just a moment, can we lift the ribs away from the hips? Can we take the weight of the thorax, the rib cage, the shoulders? And even though, we're not going to live all the time with our shoulders and our ears like this, can we lift that weight away? And can we keep that weight lifted? Can we clasp our hands and continue to reach the shoulder girdle off of the ribs, either here or by reaching here? Regardless of the degree of curve, there is a lot we can do for the change of the connective tissue. And the connective tissue, even more than the muscle, is what's holding that shape. And the connective tissue might say, okay, we're holding on for you here. We're creating stability for you, which is absolutely the case. But for you as someone with scoliosis, you want to be able to still create movement. It's very easy for me to fall in this direction, but to be able to reach in the other direction. And then in terms of the question about doing the Schroth work or doing Pilates work, I think you need to find the technique that resonates with you.
Mm-hmm.
I started Pilates because I was a dancer, and dancers, when I was training, were told that, or at least I was told, if you don't do Pilates, you're probably not going to be able to compete in the auditions with the other dancers who are doing Pilates. And so I started Pilates, and even at that age, in my 20s, when I didn't know I had scoliosis, the difference in the pain for me was already remarkable. And as long as I continued to do Pilates, I was able to continue dancing. And when I stopped doing Pilates, because life got a little crazy, it got crazier because I stopped dancing because the pain was too much.
Right. Okay. So I'm wondering, I usually ask this question about, because again, people have different opinions on this, but do you feel that there is some movements that anyone with scoliosis should stay away from, should not do?
It depends. So my first question would be, are you in pain? And then absolutely. And then, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but don't do what hurts. That would be number one. It does sound silly. However, I have so many people that say, no, I saw this video for scoliosis and it hurts, but this person is really well respected. They might be doing one of my videos and they're like, no, I do your video and it hurts a lot, but you wrote the book, so I should do it. It's like, no.
That's not how it works, no.
And so I have a couple of different philosophies on this. So number one, if you're in pain, there are certain movements we're going to ask you to stay away from for a short period of time. Number one will be anything that causes you pain, that causes you pain. Mm-hmm. And then number two, we want to, and I don't have my model here, but we want to stay away from things that are not going to move your curve, but are going to move the transitional zones. Can you give me one moment to step away from the camera, Christine?
Yes, sure, of course.
Hang on one second.
No worries. And I'll have a look at our chat in the meantime. Good. So we've got lots of people here. So nice that you're all tuning in here today. Can yoga exercises be an alternative to surgery? My curves is 40 degrees. So thanks for your question, Yasmin. And I do talk about, obviously, if you look at my channel, you'll find lots of different videos about yoga. Today we're talking about Pilates, which is not that different, to be honest. So there's definitely some overlap, and I'm sure Karena can talk as well about this. But as far as I know, Pilates developed from yoga, and it certainly, in my experience, it very much can help with pain. So for me, definitely, so I suffer from scoliosis myself. So yoga has definitely changed, first of all, my body image. There's obviously the whole mental and emotional side of yoga. Um, definitely helped with pain. And Karina was obviously talking about this same experience for her and Pilates. And then in terms of avoiding surgery, this is always, this is a tricky one. If someone has recommended surgery to you, in my opinion, what I would do, this was one of my children, if it was me, I would get lots of different opinions, because sometimes you can get to the wrong person who is kind of specializing in this, and that's what they're going to recommend for everyone. But then there might be some others who say there might be other things that you could do. So, and I would always explore all avenues before I would go down the route of surgery. And this is not to say that sometimes obviously surgery is necessary, especially if it affects the organs. But that would be my opinion on this. I don't know, Karina,
No,
what's
that
your...
sounds correct. Christine, did you want me to return to the question about exercise?
Please do. Please do.
I'm so sorry I had to step away, but this visual is helpful.
Yeah.
And what this is actually two pieces of coral. And I'll just kneel in front of the camera here so you can see.
Brilliant.
And so it kind of mimics the scoliosis spine that you see on the poster behind me. And we have with scoliosis, we don't think about, we think about all the individual vertebrae as being very flexible, all the individual vertebrae. And so what happens frequently is that where the curve changes direction, so right here where I have the two different pieces of coral, we tend to get a lot of movement right there. We call that the transitional zone. And so when we attempt to do a side bend, we bend at the transitional zone. And when we bend the other direction, of course, we bend at the transitional zone. And if this is my primary curve, which is the upper part of my back, which it is, then that curve actually doesn't bend a whole heck of a lot. Instead, we move right at that transitional zone.
Just the very mobile part.
It's very mobile. And so if I'm in pain, then I have to be very cautious that, I might just be continuing to move at that joint and then nothing is moving up here. And so that would be the same for rotation. So as I rotate, moving at that transitional zone. And then as I go into spine extension, so if I put this to the side, still moving at the transitional zone. So then, of course, this poor little joint is like, it's like, I'm so sorry. It's like it's just in pain all day, just getting too much work. And so instead, what we're going to do when we're in pain is maybe avoid those things for a small amount of time until we start feeling better, and focusing maybe more on elongation and breathing. Now, having said that, for those of you who have scoliosis and you're not experiencing pain, I highly recommend all movement. I ride my bike, I play golf, I was a professional dancer. I mean, when I was dancing professionally, there wasn't one movement that I wasn't doing. I was doing stupid things. And so, move. Our bodies are meant to move, and we feel so much better when we move. And if someone were to tell me, and this is why I'm so glad my parents didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah, they had told me, maybe not. Maybe just, just take a seat. It would have been a very different life for me, for sure.
Yes, I had actually earlier this week. I had a one-to-one client, and she was from India, and she was saying, I think because her parents didn't know that much about the condition and everything, they kind of packed her in cotton wool, and they didn't let her do anything at home. And she's in her 30s now, and she says still to date, like her mum will do the washing and the cooking because she thinks, she's going to do she's doing something good for her. But actually, it's pretty much the opposite, isn't it? We should really be encouraged to move, as you say.
Definitely encourage movement. I mean, for so many reasons. We tend to move a lot less in the 21st century than we did, say, at the beginning of the 20th century. And we don't want to discourage movement any more than our lifestyle already does. I mean, I'm a Pilates instructor, and some days I have a hard time moving enough.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good. Yes. No, I love that. There's again, it's probably coming a little bit more from the Schroth side of things, where they say stay away from anything rotation, stay away from extension, because scoliosis is a condition of extension, so the vertebrae are slightly higher at the back. And then I'm thinking, well, I have clients who are professional dancers. I'm not going to tell them to not do any of these movements.
Right. We have a practitioner that works with me here, and she works with a tremendous number of professional dancers, and she actually teaches an online class right now for those dancers with scoliosis. And so for her, it's about teaching the basics first. How do we elongate the spine? How do we derotate so we can come to neutral? So it's all of these very, very small, minor movements. And then that, like you said, Christine, these women have to move or they're going to lose their jobs.
Yes.
And so we're coming to, and then if we're in pain, we'll bring it back in. So it's just going to be this kind of motion of bringing it in, focusing on the details, pushing you back out there. And with scoliosis, it's going to be this kind of motion. If I work in the garden all day, I'll probably be bringing it back in the next day.
Yes.
Focus on the minor stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. So let me have another look what everyone's saying. Kay is saying, I'm currently going through my menopause and have right thoracic curve. My rotation seems worse and have pain in my left lower back. Which Pilates moves would you recommend?
There's not one that I can recommend to you, unfortunately, in this kind of environment, not knowing you. But in general, what we begin with is breathing. And so we need to start creating change from the inside out, and not thinking so much about the shape of our curve, but thinking more about the stability of our spine. And the diaphragm is a really amazing stability muscle. We think of it as a breathing muscle. Of course it is, but it's also a major stabilizer of the spine, or the core, and also the pelvic floor. So we need to start from the inside and then work our way out that way. So breathing is a great way to start.
Yeah. Really, it all sounds very familiar to me, obviously, because we do a lot of breathing, obviously, in yoga as well. So where would you say is how is Pilates different from yoga, maybe in your own experience?
Because I don't know yoga very well. I have a feeling it's very much the same. I can describe to you what we do. And so with the breathing, we're thinking about the diaphragm and the entire circumference of the diaphragm. And then we also think about, where is somebody breathing? Are they breathing more up in their chest? Are they breathing down low? So we're trying to assess first, where are they breathing and how are they breathing? Are they breathing fast and shallow? Are they breathing deep and slow? Are they breathing high in the chest or low in the abdomen? If someone's breathing low in the abdomen and we see a movement of the lowest ribs, then we think, okay, the diaphragm is definitely descending and sending out like an internal, not just a stretch, but also an internal stability. And so when the diaphragm descends, it expands. That's what pushes the ribs out to the side there. And we want that to happen. We need the diaphragm to become stronger. So with scoliosis, we have, if you cut me in half right here and you put my top half over there and you look down at my ribs here, you're looking down into a shape that's kind of like that, right? So kind of like that. But with scoliosis, that shape shifts and changes and translates and does all kinds of things. So the diaphragm, being a muscle, is also going to do what all of the other muscles do in scoliosis. Some live really long and some live really short. And so elongating, just a simple elongation, to get that diaphragm less rotated and twisted will allow the diaphragm to expand more evenly all the way around and allow it to descend and allow us to see in our clients and you the actual function of the diaphragm, as opposed to kind of bracing the abdomen, which can happen quite frequently if somebody's in pain. They brace and they hold. And they're like, if I don't move, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the opposite of what we're trying to do, but it is a natural response to hold yourself.
Freeze. Yeah.
Freeze. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And then in terms of movement, I mean, the Pilates classes I have been to, and there is a bit of a difference, isn't there? Some of them use lots of machines, and I'm you know better obviously than me, but to me it feels like some of them use a lot of machines, and then some of them don't use. Well, they just use like straps, and probably similar to what we use in yoga as well. Yeah, so it's there is some overlap, but obviously we don't do the machines on other sides. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So we use the machine. So the Scolio-Pilates work is more closely aligned with the scoliosis specific exercise than it is Pilates. We use the Pilates equipment and the Pilates environment and the Pilates principles to assist the scoliosis work. So if we have somebody coming in and they have a hard time walking, for instance, we might lie them down on the machine and use the machine to act as gravity. So gravity is super heavy, and you can feel, like someone said, my spine is heavy. You can feel like your legs are heavy when you're walking. But if you lie down on this machine here, and I take this part out, then it becomes a sliding bed. And then we push out like we're standing. And so now we're doing standing exercises while we're lying down, all of the standing corrections. And so we use the equipment as an assistance. But it's very important to us that you're doing your scoliosis homework on your own every day, right? I don't mean for hours, but I mean for moments at a time, all day long, when I'm walking my dog, when I'm standing in line at the market, when I'm whatever it is, I need to return to my corrections from time to time. And so we use the equipment to help assist teaching that. But we also focus a tremendous amount of work, and my second book is the Handbook, the Scolio-Pilates Handbook, so you can do these exercises at home. No equipment necessary. They're fun and they're great, and as a practitioner, I love them. But most people don't have these at home.
No, that's true. Absolutely. Good. Let me have a look here back. Albert is saying, I have arthritis and scoliosis, and the more I move, the better I feel. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Great. And my daughter, 14, is having, she has a C-curve lumbar scoliosis, convex to the left. I'm shocked to know that India, being a country of origin of yoga, there is none who knows yoga to correct scoliosis. What do you think about this? Do you think exercise can actually reduce scoliosis curves, or is it more the pain that we're trying to get rid of? What's your approach?
And I get this question a lot. So when if you really want a corrected spine, if you want a spine that is shaped like this to go to straight, then your best chance is surgery. If that's your primary goal, is I need my spine to be straight, then you need to speak with a surgeon. If your primary goal is pain reduction and improved movement and improved function and returning to the things that you love and hopefully always doing the things that you love, then your best choice is going to be exercise, whether it's yoga for scoliosis, Pilates for scoliosis, whatever it is, scoliosis specific exercise. We do see curve reduction, but not the kind of curve reduction that you get in surgery, of course. And of course, if you do surgery, there's no promise of curve reduction there either, but they usually attain quite a bit. We had a little boy in China on his first surgery, they attained quite a bit of correction. I would say he grew 6 centimeters in height after his first surgery, and he wasn't very tall. I mean, at that time, he's 10 years old. And at 12, when he went, maybe 11, when he went back in for his second surgery, he only gained 0.5 centimeter in height. And so they gained quite a bit of correction in the first surgery. They went from probably like a 95-degree curve down to like a 70-something. And on that second surgery, they went from a 70-something down to like a 68. So it's a very, very small change, because it's kind of up to the spine. Remember, we talked about how, you know, the spine with scoliosis is not as flexible between the joints as we would like it to be. And that's why we spend so much time elongating, is to stretch that connective tissue around the spine. And the deep rotation does the same exact thing. And so certainly with exercise, I'm not going to promise ever a correction to the curve, even though sometimes we do get some nice small corrections, like 10 degrees or so, but not 60. We're not getting a 60-degree correction.
Yes, exactly. And I always say you have to ask yourself, you know, what is more important to you. First of all, just because people have a straighter spine doesn't mean they're any happier. They can still be in a lot of pain. I know plenty of people that have nearly straight spines and have got enormous amount of pain. And then, well, certainly for me, it's about being happy in my body, feeling comfortable in my body now, in 10 years, in 30 years, maybe in 50 years, who knows, you know, so.
Exactly. Yeah, and one thing with surgery, we don't always see a lot of rotation correction as well. So some people, if they're going in for the aesthetics, you know, and they have a convexity on their back, sometimes we call it a sand dune that pops off the back. Even though we might be able to, as if I'm doing surgery, right? If the surgeon is able to move the spine closer to center, sometimes they're unable to correct the rotation. So that same convexity is still there. I think you just need to make the best decision for yourself, and then just make sure you have all the information that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. So Christina is saying thoracolumbar fused spine. Is there a way in Pilates to engage and build strength in lateral abdominal muscles without twisting?
Oh, absolutely. And it's probably some of the same, very similar exercises as you'll see in yoga. So all of these lateral muscles, and then front and back, if we just put you in a plank, you know, right before you do a push-up, so you're on your hands and knees or hands and feet, these muscles engage like mad. I mean, they're just really just there for you. So yes, a side plank on either side, or a plank as if you were going to do a push-up. Absolutely.
Great. So Trudy has said she bought an Allegro Reformer with tower, and I'm excited to learn how to use it to help my scoliosis and pain. Is that that's a Pilates? I have no idea what she's referring to there.
Exactly what I have here. In fact, I just took the power off so it wouldn't throw a shadow on the back there. But yes, again, the equipment is meant to be assistive, probably for the same reason that sometimes, you know, you might use yoga blocks, Christine, or the same reason you might use a yoga strap to be assistive. And sometimes that yoga strap or the yoga block can be used for a challenge. It's the exact same idea.
Good. Is there anything, is there something simple you could show us, kind of an all-rounder, sure, not curve specific?
Absolutely.
Or even curve specific if you want.
No, I won't do curve specific, because that's just, you know, only going to be helpful to one person with my curve. Yes. But I'll get out of the way here. But if you're either sitting right where you are, feet on the ground would be great, or you can sit with your legs crossed. I'll sit with my legs crossed. And then from here, instead of the ankles being crossed, I just have one leg in front of the other. And I'm going to start off with a series of elongation. exercises. And I can do hands on the hips, so we'll do this one together. So hands go pushing down on the hips and then up through the roof of the mouth. And then from here, that little gusset that's in the bottom of your pants, my friend Suzanne, our teacher here, calls it the magic diamond. Lift that magic diamond up, that's your pelvic floor. And from here, the roof of your mouth floats to the sky. Squeeze those butt muscles. So I call this the magic carpet ride. It's like you're almost trying to do everything you can to float off the mat. The butt is squeezing, the pelvic floor is lifting, the top of the head is up to the sky. So we're reaching, reaching, reaching. And then one little breath here. So just the smallest little inhale. And then exhaling, exhaling, and exhaling. And then inhale when you have to, and let that inhale be just as big as that exhale was. So just let that inhale happen. You don't even have to ask it to happen. It just will do it. And then we can take the hands on the ribs, and we can lift the ribs away from the hips. So really elongating here, taking the weight of the spine or the upper back off of the low back. So if you had a low back curve, this might be a really nice one for you. And then I always teach the same breathing. We always start with a little tiny inhale, and then we exhale all the air. You'll feel the ribs coming together a bit, and then allow that inhale to be as big as the exhale was. And everything expands. And you could, of course, take a couple breaths there. We'll move our way up to a letter V. And so we elongate here, nice and long. Again, my shoulders are in my ears here. I know we don't like to teach this way because we're like shoulders down, but we're doing this for a very specific reason. We're trying to take the weight of the shoulder girdle off of the spine. And then once that weight is off, then go ahead and see if you can bring the shoulders down while keeping the weight of the shoulders off. And again, shoulders up. And then you feel how free and long your spine is here. See if you can take the shoulders down and keep that length. That's it. Good work. One more time. Shoulders up. And then shoulders come down like you've dropped heavy, warm sand on the shoulders. Hands go behind the head and thumbs go to the jaw. Now be super careful with this one. And you're going to take the weight of the shoulder girdle and the weight of your head off of the rib cage here. But if you pull too hard, you're going to feel too much stretch. It's not a good thing. And then relax, shoulders down. Really lengthen, get that weight off of the spine and come back down. One more time. Reach, reach, reach. Don't pull too hard. Hold here, little tiny breath in. And exhale all the air. Inhale when you need to and make it as big as you can, or as big as the exhale was. From here, hands go in the shape of a fist. They go behind your hips. And last one, you're going to elongate up. In this position, you'll feel one rib touching your arm and one rib that's having a little bit of a harder time touching that arm. You're going to take a little breath in and exhaling, get taller. Lift the magic diamond, head to the sky. Now, when you allow the inhale to happen, see if you can get that rib that wasn't touching the arm very much. See if you can get it to touch a little bit more. And exhale all the air. Out it goes. Out it goes. Lift the magic diamond, roof of the mouth to the sky. And now when you have to inhale, let it be big. And see if you can expand those ribs into that arm, the side that wasn't touching as much. Good. Good.
Great.
Just a little elongation and then give it a little wiggle.
Thank you.
Happy? You're so welcome. It's good for me too.
It's great to do something simple that you can do at your desk and anywhere where you're sitting, isn't it? You don't need lots of space or fancy equipment or anything.
No, I think it's really crucial because with someone with scoliosis, I can't maintain my correction all day long. I can't maintain this beautiful elongation all day long. And I'll find myself hanging out over here.
Oh, yes. So for me, it's the lumbar curve. I find myself crossing my legs. You can't see it here, but and
Yeah.
then twisting to the side, collapsing.
It feels super comfortable and very natural.
Yeah.
And I'll be driving, and I look like a gangster because the more I sink down, And so, yeah, it's not possible to maintain it all day, but it's very possible to return to this elongation.
Yeah, I love this one. I love that. It feels so nice.
Yeah,
Just
I
creating
love
that
that.
length. I get a lot of tension in my neck, so
Yeah,
really
be
lovely.
careful with it. Don't overstretch there. We call that exercise flying up. Yeah, just to get a nice elongation.
Yeah.
Like you said, Christine, it doesn't have to be complex. It just has to be effective.
Yeah. Good. So Vanessa is saying, loving this chat. I agree that having a straight spine doesn't guarantee a pain-free life. Fortunately, I have a milder curve, but we have Pilates exercise to help us bring us back to center. Good. A surgical fusion should only ever for very severe cases or for those in severe pain, as a fused spine puts more pressure on the discs above and below it. Yeah, and this comes back to get all the information, obviously, and then, make your informed decisions. Surgeries have become so much better as well, I have to say, and there's some amazing surgeons out there. So I don't want to say, don't have surgery at all, but I would always try and get as much information as possible and find out what's out there, obviously.
Yeah, and I would say also don't be afraid to talk to a surgeon. I have some people, we had a rash of people coming through who none of them even had a medical doctor that they were speaking with. So we started a new policy in our studio and said, if you're coming for scoliosis, you must have a relationship with a medical doctor. Because I feel like I can educate quite well about scoliosis, but I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
And I don't want that responsibility, and I don't want to leave something out. It's kind of like any topic. You're listening to this chat. You want to find the best minds on the topic of whatever it is. And exercise is just one component. There's people out there who are doing bracing, and there's people out there doing surgery. I would say read what they have to say, talk to them, have a relationship, and see what's best for you. And don't be afraid to have that relationship, because some people are afraid of that doctor relationship.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Karena. Thank you so much for your time today. How can people find you? How can they get in touch with you?
So it's Scolio-Pilates.com, so that's easy. And I'm on Instagram, Karena Thek.
Yeah, I put it here on your slide, so you've got the Instagram handle there.
Find me there. I do have a Facebook page for Scolio-Pilates, but the Instagram seems to be more active, so you might want to go there instead. But yeah, we have a free class on Thursdays at 3 p.m. for scoliosis, and Trudy, who's on, she takes the class. So yeah, it's fun. I mean, just come join us and
brilliant. And then do you do one-to-one sessions or?
Absolutely, quite a few.
Good. And I heard you do teacher trainings as well. Before this crisis, you were probably traveling quite a bit.
So, I do teacher trainings. I travel all over the world, which is very fun. And I've started teaching my Module 1 course online. So Module 1 is about beginning to really understand scoliosis, and everybody takes that class. My Pilates people, my Pilates instructors, my physiotherapists, my individuals with scoliosis, everybody takes that course, and it's just so much information. And we have exercises at the end of the course. And then Module 2, we haven't taught online yet, but we'll be doing that in July. And that's more of the exercises and how do we move this shape back to center.
Brilliant. Yeah. I will check that out, definitely. I also try and get your book. So yes, maybe you can point me in the right direction there.
It's no problem at all.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes, and thank you so much for everyone who's been here and who's been chatting with us as well. It always makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, for sure.